Welcome to Coleman, Alabama. This is the May edition of the Lost and Foundry Show 2023. We're going to talk about the Foundry Farm, the Coleman community. Stay tuned. This is going to be a great podcast.
Yes.
So we're here at the Foundry Farm up in Coleman, kind of like Holly Pond-ish area.
It is, just outside of Holly Pond.
I went to school with a girl who said she was from Holly Pond. She was shocked I knew where it was from because
Wow.
it's such a small community.
Yeah.
So, so more of the Holly Pond area up here, but it's really Coleman. And so it's kind of an oddity up here to have such a big addiction recovery facility
Right.
in this beautiful setting, right?
That's right. We have 60 acres of land here, and our maximum capacity right now, men in our program, is 70.
70
Well, we currently
men.
have 64, so we're almost at maximum capacity.
Oh man,
Sure.
tons of life change. I've already spoken to a lot of men who are getting tons of just great benefits being
Sure.
up here. And I think one of the great benefits of the farm specifically is that so many men and women in addiction are in this urban environments, and they've still got access to their drug dealers there,
Right,
and
right.
maybe even some trauma experience
That's
still
right.
being
Yeah,
in the.
sure.
So talk a little bit about that.
Well, the great thing about the Foundry Farm, like you say, is the rural setting where we have 60 acres here. And I like to explain it sometimes like, our investment program is awesome as it is, and I'm a graduate of our program, which I'll share a little bit more later. You have the concrete and the bright lights and the street lights and things like that. Where here you can walk outside and see every star in the sky, and just relax. It's just peaceful. I mean, you really can connect with God. Now, don't get me wrong, you can connect with God anywhere you are. Of course, you just got to want to. But here in the evenings, when the moon is up and the sun is setting and things like that, it's just so peaceful to sit back and reflect on what
Yeah.
God's done for you that
Yeah.
day.
There have been a bunch of men who, at the Bessemer location, have found freedom and all that, but a lot of the
Absolutely.
men who fell at the Bessemer location can get a new chance up here.
That's right.
And it works out for them.
That's right, and that's one thing we like to do. If you're in one of our programs, whether it be Bessemer, we like for you to try here next, and then same way here. If it doesn't work out for you here, a lot of times it's not the setting or where you are; it's just the heart of wanting to change. We all know that in addiction, right? So we kind of refer guys who have been through our program here to try the Bessemer program if they don't make it here the first time. Also,
Yeah, let's talk about the land and all the different
Okay.
features that we have. I'll pick up this camera after the podcast, and I'll make sure we have some good,
Good,
video
good,
of it.
good.
The first thing I noticed when we drove in is that the greenhouse is up.
Right. We just put a high tunnel up on our property, which will allow us to extend our growing season from around February to November, 1st to December, something like that. But what it also does is it teaches the guys how to use an irrigation system, a lay flat line watering system, and things like that. So there's a lot of employment readiness benefits to the high tunnel. Number one, it was put up by men in our program with the guidance from a good friend of ours, Jason, who is a professor at Wallace State College here in the Coleman community, Hansville, actually.
That's fantastic.
He came out and just hands-on showed the guys what to do. And within a week's time, we had it up and just put the shade cloth on it yesterday, now that it's warming up and things like that, to where the plants in there don't burn up. But it's just going to let us be able to control the environment from a pest standpoint, a watering standpoint, or irrigation, and just everything that goes along with the system that's put in place for this to be successful.
And then we got the garden out right behind it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And we have a bigger garden, which again, we also use the plastic and the lay flat watering system, irrigation system for it, to where we can control how much water goes where instead of having to rely on rain and wondering if it's going to rain and getting too much and things like that. So we currently have 14 rows, 120 foot long each, with about 12, well, not about, with 12 different crops growing in it. So
12 crops.
right now we have a total of 16 different crops that we're growing.
Who's keeping up with all that?
There's three, our staff member, Mac, which is our farm property manager, oversees a crew of, believe it or not, of only about 2 people that take care of all of this. So
My goodness.
another benefit for the plastic, you can
Yeah.
control the weeds and things like that, but they're doing a great job. It's coming in really well.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can get some pictures of that later
Oh,
in
for
the high
sure.
tunnel and
For
everything.
sure. And then we got the hen house, which we talk about all the time, but the hen
Hen-house.
house right behind it.
Foundry Farm fresh eggs.
Fresh eggs.
Go to our thrift store, Highway 31 in Coleman, get all you want. But yeah, it's we currently have about 460 hens in it. So we're picking up about 455 to 460 eggs a day. And one of the great things about the Coleman community is the eggs that we pick up are in 7 different restaurants and grocery stores here in the Coleman area.
That's fantastic.
Everyone from Allsteak to Urban Cookhouse, Jack's Foodland, right up the street here at the Holly Pond Cafe. These places buy their eggs from us. So they know when they purchase eggs from the farm, it's not just about buying an egg or saving $1. They're literally putting money back into our life change programs for the men who take care of the eggs and the hen house production up here. And right now, there's currently 3 men assigned to it, which their mornings start around 5:30 and end around 9:30 every day. So,
Putting in the
regardless of
work.
what you got going on, a hen's still going to lay eggs and have to eat. You know what I mean? So it's a 7-day-a-week thing, but it's very rewarding. The guys, they find great joy in just. I mean, we were up there just a little while ago, and one guy has already picked out a hen that he knows personally, and I forget what he said. He's going to call her and everything, but she'll like come up to him and he can pet her and hold her, and it's like they just have this bond. It's just weird to see, or odd to see. It's not weird. But the men, like I say, get a lot out of it because they're nurturing something. They're helping something grow. They're physically touching what's going on in this hen house. And not only that, they're learning a trade that in the Coleman community, if that's something they want to go into once they graduate, whether it be through a junior college like Wallace State or which transfers to Athens or a major college like Auburn University, poultry science, and the poultry industry is big in this area.
Yeah.
Real big.
Yeah. It definitely feels like Alabama up
Yeah.
here to
Oh,
me.
yeah, definitely.
So let's go back to how'd you end up at the Foundry, and let's talk about your story.
Okay.
And, I mean, you've been here leading up here for quite a while
Since
now.
2011. But my story started basically, I started drinking when I was 14 years old. Drank. That's all I wanted to do was drink and go to clubs. Well, that, of course, caused a lot of different issues with the police. If I was going somewhere, I was driving. And by the grace of God, I never hurt anyone or myself, but I have several DUIs, which, in the state of Alabama, anything over 3 is a felony. So I'm looking to get all that expunged at some point where I'm not a convicted felon, so to speak. But through my life, I just continued drinking and things. So finally, when I was 41 years old, I got my last DUI and got an attorney, and he recommended the Foundry in Bessemer. So I'm like, okay, well, let's do it. So, like most people who come through these doors, I was 4 days away from going to court, So I'm like, okay, I got to get there where I'll be there when I go to court. And sure enough, Judge Thompson in Morgan County, he said, Eddie, I've seen you too many times in these courtrooms. This is the last time I want to see you. You need to get in a bed that the Foundry has for you. I've got one waiting for you. And the word Kilby came up, and I knew what he was talking about. And I knew at that point he was serious, So I came, I went through the program, did several different jobs and things like that through the employment readiness part of the program, but ended up graduating and staying on staff. And I graduated in 2006, and this September will be 17 years that I've actually been working for the Foundry. So very, very grateful for that. I could talk all day about that. But one of the ways I got to the farm was my sister passed away in 2010, in September 2010. Had a son, Zach, my nephew. His father really wasn't in his life. I didn't know who his father was. So what I had to do was step up and become an instant overnight guardian or father to Zach, and by me living in Bessemer and him going to the school system in Hartselle, I didn't want to just take him up out of school and transfer him to Bessemer or McAdory or Jess Lanier at the time or something like that. So he went to stay with my aunt and uncle in Hartselle through his freshman year. And then July of the following year, we had an apartment in Hartselle, moved in together, and that's when I transferred up to the Foundry farm. We had talked about doing intakes and things at the farm. It used to just be a transitional place for the Foundry and intake. You'd come through the Bessemer program, do your intake, and then come up here for 2 weeks. And if you made what we called permanent party, you would stay here, work the grounds, do things like that, because that was before we had a thrift store. But talking to Mike Andrews and Dusty Hammock at the time, they said, yeah, come on, So transferred up here, started up here in October of 2011, and November 11th, 2011, we brought our first program participant into the program at the farm that actually stayed here. We became our own standalone program, so to speak, on 11/11/11,
Yeah.
which is really cool. And we haven't looked back. At the time, we had maybe 30 people here, and it grew to 50, and then it grew to 60, and then we built a new dorm that has a, sleeping capacity of 80 people. So we've really seen a lot of growth here.
Yeah. And the need hasn't slowed down.
Oh no, the need. There's 4 people scheduled to come in today, and that's on any given day.
Yeah.
One of the great things about God's coming in now is we have changed our programs, our life-changing programs, to a 6-month program, residential. So it's a lot easier to convince a guy to come in for 6 months, him knowing he can go non-residential or at that point instead of having to stay 9 months or a year. So the way we're doing things now, we're giving the same content, the same resources, except better. To be honest, with our Hope Inspired Ministry classes and other curriculum that we're teaching, guys right now at the Foundry as a whole, including the Foundry Farm, are being fed more spiritually than I've ever seen in the last 17 years that I've been here.
Yeah, it's been
And
incredible.
it's incredible to see a graduation of Hope Inspired Ministries and
Yeah.
the change in these guys who, once they started that class 12 weeks ago, didn't even know how to cut on a computer, much less look up their email,
Yeah. It's like we hit a wall with COVID.
Right.
And then we all just stopped and said, when we get back to it, we're really going to do
That's
it.
right. And we have.
Yeah.
The curriculum is incredible. It changes about every 12 weeks. We have a different topic, everything from your identity in Christ to facing fear to sexual purity or impurity. Everything, of course, is biblical, Bible-based, and has scripture to back up what we teach. Our counselors love it because it allows them to have one-on-one counseling with an individual, but it also allows them to do group counseling now, which we, up until the new programs, had never done, which we're seeing is very paying off big time because guys love knowing about other guys' story.
Yeah.
Your story's no different than mine, except maybe how I got here and how you got here. At the end of the day, we're both addicts and running from God.
Yeah.
So once you get to a place where you see a common goal, and that's your Heavenly Father and what's waiting for you after you pass this world, it's incredible to see how they bond and talk to each other in these group settings about what's going on with their
Yeah.
life. But my story is basically I was a drunk. I did it till I was 41 years old, came to the Foundry, had no idea, didn't even want to think about or even thought that I'd ever stop drinking. It had gotten really bad, burned a lot of bridges with family and things like that, but they never turned their back on me. They've always been there for me. And thank God for prayer because I know, without them, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah, I hope this serves as inspiration for you that
Exactly.
many of the people I speak to convince to support addiction recovery at some level, there's a hesitation there.
Right.
I think it's because a lot of it feels like they did it to themselves.
That's right.
Where, like I've worked with like CLCC, helping homeless men transition back into society. There's a little bit more, sometimes people fall on hard times.
Sure,
And so
sure.
they deserve a helping hand up, but you'd be shocked how much of the people that are dealing with addiction, it's the same story.
Same
It's,
story.
who can blame a 14-year-old?
Right.
And
right.
And then you just needed that moment in your life. And now look at Eddie. He's
Amen.
director here at the farm. He's honestly transformed hundreds of men's lives. He'll tell you it's through the power of God, but
Amen.
God uses people.
That's right.
And so, trust me, supporting the Foundry or the Foundry Farm is maybe one of the best things you could do with your time while you're here on Earth. Speaking of supporting the farm with the time you have here, Coleman community, you guys are incredible when it comes to supporting the Foundry
Yes,
Farm. This room we're in now, talking about spiritual enrichment, this room right here, totally Coleman community. Now, I don't think if we spent a dime, it was just pocket change that we happened to pull out of our own
Right.
pockets.
Or a picture or a clock I thought we needed, and I didn't want to ask somebody for the money,
Yeah.
So I just went and bought it. But
look at this room. How
Yeah.
many people can sit in here?
we can seat a maximum of 160 people. in here.
160. So a church for 160 people. We fill it up with men and women of the
Families.
community,
Sure.
families. And you guys have built this. And so speaking of the community and the power of the Coleman community and tons of the features of the Foundry Farm, the hen house, all of the gardening and stuff out here. Coleman community. This is all you guys.
All the way back to the new dorm.
And so we see and we hear you guys, and we want to be very specific about making sure you have an outlet to continue supporting the farm in a much more direct way. So we've done two things. Number one, there's a new The Foundry Farm Facebook page. We've had a couple of issues getting the Facebook page started. We'll have a link to go to that Facebook page so that you can support the Foundry Farm specifically, and you can see when we have specific needs like sheets or anything else, pillows. You can also go there to see men who are having success up here, or if we see rattlesnakes on the trail, you can also see the snakes. We saw one earlier. And so we have a page just for you. Go like the page. Podcasts, all the stuff from the Foundry Ministries. We'll put some of that stuff on there as well. But we want you to be able to go there and see what's happening with the men up here at the Foundry Farm. And also in adjacent with that, we're going to have a donation page specifically for the Foundry Farm. So if you want to join the change, if you want to become a giver where you give once a year, or maybe just want to give once and start your partnership today, there's a Foundry Farm donation page you can go to right now. Link is in the description for that as well. And also another part of the change is that there is a volunteer specific page right now.
Right.
If you want to volunteer up here at the farm, you're part of the Coleman community, come up here, serve the men. There's lots of opportunities. And we can honestly say that volunteers have maybe made the biggest impact here at the
Without a
farm.
doubt.
There are quite a few quality men who come up here and speak life. I mean, just huge, John, and they're the same men who made this building happen. So I would really encourage you today, if you're inspired by Eddie's story, or you're inspired by the farm itself and the men who are changing their lives up here, go to the donation page, go to the Facebook page, go to the volunteer page. We want you to fit in whatever works for you, however you're inspired to fit into today.
That's right.
Thank you, Eddie, for having us today.
Thank you.
I hope that you guys are inspired. I hope that you guys are motivated to join us it takes a community to make something like this happen. And so that's just not that's just not others doing it, that's you doing it too.
Right.
So we hope that you join the community, join today, like the Facebook page, and we'll see you next time in June.
Good deal.
Awesome. That was great. That was
Thank you, man.
fantastic.
Thank you.